Hi, my name is Michael G, and today we're going to be discussing the feminist movement and the MGTOW movement, which is men going their own way. There are a lot of videos that you might find on the internet talking about feminism and MGTOW and what they mean and how they define them. And after watching a whole bunch of them, we felt that we should put something out that will discuss both feminism and MGTOW, where they're coming from, and what they really mean. And I know that there's going to be opposition compared to what the feminists believe and what the MGTOW people believe. However, this is going to be the overview video of other videos to come. So we're going to go over a few images, and the images are going to not be defined today. It's pretty much just something just to look at this time, and then they'll be defined a little bit later in the other videos. There's probably going to be 8 or 10 videos in this series. They're going to discuss different types of feminists and different types of MGTOWs until we kind of lay the whole thing out on you, and then you guys and women take a look at it and see what it does for you. Let's start with the first big misnomer started by the feminist movement. I have this image here, and for now we're just going to use this as a generic male or female image, and we know there are differences between the male and the female. But what the female feminist movement wants to do is tell you that, hey, men and women are equal. And that is the first lie. So what women are trying to do now is they're trying to get a voice. They're trying to do a lot of things. But if we were to take this body, we have to understand that there is a masculine and a feminine part within a body, whether it be male or female. The head is always the masculine, and the torso is always the feminine. So when we look at a man and a woman with their various strengths, this is what we get. The woman is this part of the body. This part of the body that the man really is kind of lacking. He doesn't have that part of the body as much. The limbs he controls with the head. But that's tied to the woman or feminine part of the body. So in no way can the woman be the man and the man be the woman. Because when you start to make that switch, you get a couple of problems. And an example of this would be that one of the feminist movement's ideologies is that everything can be equal. Well, they're trying to fill slots in jobs that they say, well, a woman can do it. Well, maybe a woman doesn't want to do it. An example for women is, why aren't there enough women in technology? Well, maybe there are not that many that are interested in technology. Why are there not that many? Why don't they have that argument about the pay differential between female models and male models? Or why don't the feminists discuss why there are more females in the healthcare industry, like nurses, for instance? Do they rally to try and bring in more men? No, they really don't. That's really preposterous. The woman's power is here in the torso. The man's power is in the head. However, there's a greater power in the complete person, and that has to do with the spirit. Men find women very attractive, but there's another reason why the men find the women attractive. It's the spirit. That's what is inside the torso part of the body. The man is a little bit more disconnected from his torso. That's why the men are not as feeling oriented and as the women are not that much thinking oriented. You see, they're different purposes. The men today, some of them will tell you, oh, the women can't feel. Well, I've heard videos, the MGTOW men feels more, and I've heard the women say that, that women suffering. Okay, great. We'll get to each one of those concerns in future videos. But a couple of things that might be interesting is that the man is not complete if he doesn't have the woman. And the funny part about this is that this was written thousands of years ago, and you can find this in the Bible in Genesis 1:26. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness." And notice the word us, let us make. And then you go further down in verse 27, and God prepareth the man in his image, in the image of God he prepared him, a male and a female he prepared them. So the image of God is female and male together. Well, female and male within the same body. Masculine, feminine, tied to the Spirit of God in the feminine part of the body. And that's one of the real great desires that unconsciously men have towards women, because they hold the Spirit. The problem with the women today is that they want to be the man. So for them to go to the head, you're going to have a very big distortion, because they're just not set up that way. So as you could see, if this is the woman and she wants to have the power of the head, well, there's going to be some sacrifices there. And these sacrifices or changes, or we can call them a lot of different distortions. And these distortions will happen in different parts of the upbringing, or where this female, or if we're talking about the men, where the distortion happens. Here's one of the distortions. And this is the militant feminist. The militant feminist has the torso, and what she wants to do is control the head. Before she became a militant feminist, she was a militant enabler. The enabler that turned into the feminist. This is what we would call a blind enabler, because they're just blindly enabling. They are not controlling their enabling. They're just enabling constantly. But in their enabling, you could see that if this is supposed to be a heart here, you got arms growing out of the heart trying to control the head. And the head would be the male. And the way they don't give love, they give will. So these are the feminists that also end up being in a lot of violence. They are in a lot of violence, these feminists. Now, I ran out of paper to draw the counterpart to the militant feminist on the male side. We're going to get to that later. So that's our militant feminist. Now we have another type of feminist. We have a psychopath feminist. The psychopath feminist, she has upward energy, leaving her spirit down here, and the closest she can come to the head is a mouth and eyes. The psychopath feminist is the one that you hear about that makes up these stories, lies and lies and lies, and they just want to do the men in on lies. The big manipulators, they don't care if they get caught in lies. They create a lot of out-of-body trauma. And notice they do have a long neck, but they want to stay away from the spirit. The spirit is where the truth is, not the head. The spirit has to rise to the head, not just in the woman, but in male or woman, The spirit must rise to the head. In the Bible, a lot of feminists talk about the Bible. They say there are no women's names in the Bible. And the reason is that God only wants to see himself. As Jesus said in the rising, there's not male or female, there's only sons of God. The sons of God is male or female head connected to the Spirit of God. So this is the resurrected head. The old head must die. So whether you're male or female, you could still be the son of God because your head is the masculine. Next, we are going to have the attractive feminist. And this is the feminist that you would probably find, this is the jewel of the female feminists. The militant feminist protects the lamb, as they say. And this is the attractive feminist. This one, that's the head. But since this head cannot take too much aggravation, it uses the government as its head. So this is the distortion of the woman. Now we have plenty of distortions for the men as well. But today we're just going to use one of them because this one is just so accurate that we're going to talk about this. This is your MGTOW man. Essentially, this damage happened before 3 years old. So 1.5 years to 3, the mother literally cut off the arms and the legs emotionally, energetically, and did not allow the head to pop up. So what happens is this person might have a trunk-shaped body. And this trunk-shaped body is also shared by the militant feminist, like a truncated body. Whereas the attractive feminist would have a more slender body or more proportionate body, whereas the psychopath feminist might have exaggerated body, like exaggerated breasts with a very tiny waist and tiny or very tiny hips, a little bit not fully proportionate. Might be attractive to the men, but whatever. This is your MGTOW man. Mother created him, did not allow him to have the head pop up when it was supposed to, because at 1.5 years to 3 is when we start, all the children start to say no. That's the terrible twos you hear. Well, that's what the first thing the head wants to do is say no. But if the mother didn't allow the child to say no, it is really just telling the child you do not have a head. And this is the energetic. This is before relationships with women. After having a lot of relationships with women or any relationships with women and they don't go very well, there's a lot of pressure building up in here. And then they get to the point where the pain and the pressure is so much in the body, it ejects the head. Your MGTOW male now is in the webosphere or the manosphere. So the MGTOW man is the ejected head with no body. Now let me tell you, a lot of people think or can think, I'm stretching, I'm saying, a lot of crazy things. Everything the feminist does and everything the MGTOW does will prove this. Something as simple as the name that they chose. Because if you notice, MGTOW is an acronym. An acronym, men going their own way. Only the first letter is saved from men going their own way. An acronym, right? When the head is ejected, the only part that's left, or better yet, when the head is ejected, is the head is gone and the body's no longer seen. Isn't that what this acronym is? This is the head of every word of these 5 words. Men going their own way. These are 5 heads of words, just like this. It's the same thing. So this will give you a little insight on what's going on why the MGTOWs believe what they believe, why the feminists believe what they believe. The women want to have a voice. And the voice, to have the voice, they have to sacrifice something. And I'll tell you, one of the things that they sacrifice everything in the torso. The torso, so that they can have a head, which the women will not get a head. They will get to the neck. What do they sacrifice? The heart and the spirit. And the spirit is very close to the reproductive organs. You know, the white woman's working disease is she has problem with fertility. And the reason she has problem with fertility is for her to take her energy that's in this part of the body and go there, she has to sacrifice her torso. So if she sacrifices this energy, guess what? You can't reproduce. And God tells you, men with men and women with women. It says it in Romans 1 and 2. And the very fact of men with men is not homosexuality like you might think. It's feminism and MGTOW. That's the evidence of the judgment of God. You can't reproduce. The men have a lot of these women walking around. They can't even talk to them. The women came from where the spirit was. Now they're going to the head. So they're highly critical of the men. And the men want nothing to do with the women. You see the ejection? The MGTOW ejection? You see MGTOW? See? The head? Acronym? Acronym? You know? This is really easy to see. There's not a lot of... this is not rocket science here. I don't have to sit there and really... it's going to be very hard for a MGTOW person to defend their point when this is actually what they're saying. Because what happens when you go to their head? I'll give you a couple of little hints right now. They get hooked up with the computers. When you get hooked up with the computers with what? Video games. And now they got video games that they're doing it constantly. So their whole man cave has left their hands, which is connected to the body, by the way, mind you, and now has gone to the virtual reality. I mean, it's no joke, but gaming industry is larger than the movie industry. Now, this underlying problem was here in society before, but it was manageable, or it was different. What magnified this feminist and MGTOW is the computer industry. The computers totally magnified the problem. Where these two, the male and the female, now cannot reconcile. They are separating now. So, again, this is our introductory video on the feminist movement and the MGTOW movement. And there's plenty of distortions here. And it'd be very hard for anyone to refute these as the other videos start coming out. And then I, put together all the aspects of what does this ejection mean? What are some of the things that happens? Like, look, now you're no longer part of the body. A lot of MGTOWs are very judgmental of the women. They want to talk to the women and try and tell them. Let me tell you something. If you're dealing with women that are enablers, like the militant feminist, men tend in distortion to go towards the psychopathy if the damage happened at an older time, and if the damage happened at younger ages, they tend to become more introverted like this. The MGTOW movement calls this guy the beta guy. This would be their beta guy. But there's really a lot more to that than just A and B. I mean, A and B is really simple. Just like the feminists, they have different. But for instance, the militant feminist was an enabler from hell. You have no idea how much punishment they can take. They can take tremendous amount of punishment. I've dealt with enablers. And anyone that does work with enablers, they'll tell you horror stories that the enabler will stay in a relationship which was horrific amount of abuse, but their power is that they have to stay in that relationship because look at what they're giving. They're giving the will and not the heart. So when you give the will and not the heart, you must use all your power to hold on. Literally the power of the spirit. And this is the close look. It even looks almost like a heart. And this was drawn intentionally because this is not the heart. These women might look like they're giving you the heart, but they're not. They're giving you the will. And this will make a man furious one day. Furious, if not one day, all the time. You cannot convince this person, change this person, unless it's literally an epiphany, a work of God. Because it's so ingrained in them. And they're using the power of the Spirit to use all their energy to keep using their will because they can't give the heart. Just to give you a little bit of the difficulty of trying to talk your way through to these people. You can't. This is an energy. If this clicks with you, you got it. If this doesn't click with you, then you're defending this because you're part of it. You're defending this because you're part of it. You might be defending this because you're part of it. And there's another image I think I had here. Or you're defending this. And these are not all of them by any means. Again, I said to you, I ran out of paper. This is my thicker paper. And I'll have more paper in time for the rest. And also I'm going to fill in a lot of information here. I'll have these pictures on my website as well, so you can see them. And again, the MGTOW feminist movement, each side has grievances, each side has a point. However, at the end of the day, you need each other. Because whatever you do to the woman, you're actually doing to yourself. And whatever the woman does to the man, she's doing it to herself. And again, this is all in the Bible. Everything that you're hearing me say is in the Bible. We have examples of all these people. If you want to see a psychopath feminist, you could look at Jezebel. If you want to see a attractive feminist, you could look at Vashti. Vashti would be the attractive feminist. If you want to see the MGTOW, you could look at Saul, the first king of Israel. He went his own way. He sacrificed a different sacrifice. And instead of tying to a spirit, he gave a different he wasn't supposed to do what the priest does in the offering, and he did. And he went his own way. And whether it be feminist or MGTOW, both are going their own ways, but they're both going their own way without God. That you can be assured of, because you have to leave the body to maintain your viewpoint. The woman is trying to leave the torso to go to the head, and the man is trying to leave the body altogether. Once again, my name is Michael Idadaji, and may God bless His Word, and by the grace of God, somebody gets this, and I hope a lot of people get this before it's too late. God bless.